Welcome back. This story is called Surveillance. When I worked in workers' comp as a defense attorney, we had surveillance, meaning that if we suspected that the injured person was lying, we would send a video person, a private investigator, to their house. They would sit in their car for 8 hours a day, filming the person's house, and if they came out of their house, they would follow them. For example, there was a case that I inherited. It was an old case that came to me from another attorney. In this case, the woman had a cervical fusion. She had her cervical bones or vertebrae in her neck. She had a cervical fusion. They followed this woman. They sent surveillance. They followed her from her house to the beach, and they watched her get on a jet ski. Okay, so now this woman is riding the waves back and forth on a jet ski, bouncing along, and she's got this, cervical fusion in her neck. So what he wanted to do, this is the previous attorney, who's going to show this video to her doctor and say, well, look, obviously this woman is healed because she's, can ride on a jet ski, and, you should basically put her back to work. So we'd stop paying her lost wages. He took the woman's deposition, the woman with the cervical fusion, and he finds out that the woman has an identical twin sister. And it was the twin sister who was riding on the jet ski, not this woman. So that's a little story about surveillance. Early on in my career, I was working for an attorney named Dante. Dan had a case in the office of a woman who had been injured at work. Usually we only handled the defense cases, but this was actually a case that we were handling representing this injured worker. She'd been injured several years before. She was still on disability. The attorney on the other side, the defense attorney, contacted Dan and said, I want to take this woman's deposition because we have some really good surveillance on her, and I want to question her about this surveillance. So Dan said to me, I was a brand new attorney, he goes, you're going to cover the deposition, you're going to talk to this woman, she's your client, you're going to find out what it is that she's been doing, try to figure out what this surveillance is, and then once the deposition starts, you'll find out what this hot surveillance is that they have against our client. I knew nothing about surveillance at that point. I didn't know any idea about what's going on. So I'm sitting with this woman. She's very large, probably 300 pounds, big lady, big hips, very tall. She complains of a back injury. She injured her back at work. She said it hurts. Her back hurts. There's always a big lump. She called it a pine cone on her back. So this was at least 2 years after her injury. Now the attorney on the other side, what I used to do is taking her deposition, asking her all these questions. And then he does this. He takes out an envelope of photographs. There's color photographs in this envelope. And he shows them to my client while the deposition is going on. This is very unusual, okay? This has never been done before. Whenever there's surveillance, there's always a video. There's no still photographs. Well, these photographs showed her on vacation, okay? Recently on a vacation. They were taken by her ex-husband, who had sent them to the defense attorney as evidence that she's a liar, that she can work. And they show her like walking up this hill, and then they show her in an inner tube, like she's tubing, floating down the river. And he's showing her these pictures, and he keeps saying to her, were you in pain? Were you in pain? Were you in pain? And then the pictures have become like weird. Like all of a sudden, she's inside of a male strip club, okay? And you see pictures of her stuffing a dollar bill into some guy's underwear. And obviously this husband sent these pictures in order to embarrass her, because it had nothing to do with her disability. I mean, anyone can stick a dollar bill in somebody's underwear. So she's showing these pictures, and she's saying, yeah, that's me, but, I'm still hurt. Don't worry about those pictures, I'm still hurt. Then he pulls out another envelope, a second envelope, and he's like, I'm going to show you these pictures. I'm going to leave the room. I'm going to let you and your lawyer look at these pictures, and then I'll come back in. So I'm like, what the hell? Again, totally out of the ordinary. He slides the envelope across the table. He leaves the room with the court reporter. It's just me and the claimant. She's about 35 years old. She takes the pictures and she starts crying. I'm like, what is it? I didn't look. I didn't even want to know what was on those pictures. And she goes, these pictures are pornographic. That's what she said. They're pornographic. These were pictures taken by the ex-husband of her having sex with another guy, okay, who happened to be African American. And I did see the pictures eventually. And the one picture that stands out in my mind, she's wearing like a bra that's made out of like chains. It's got like a leather strap around it, so you can see her boobs. I don't know what she was wearing down below. Nothing. She was wearing nothing below. This guy, this African American guy, had her upside down, okay? He was holding this woman. Like I said, she was like 300 pounds, like this. He has arms around her like this. And her legs were over his shoulders, so her cooch was right in his face, and her head was down there, okay? And they were having, oral sex while he was holding her like this. So I talked to my boss, Dan, about it. Well, the first thing I did is I objected. When you're doing a deposition, you have to object to everything. You have to do it on the record, because if you don't object, then this stuff can get into evidence. You have to object the first time you see it. So I objected, object. So he said, okay, what we'll do is we'll put them in a sealed envelope, nobody will see it, and then we'll go to the judge and let the judge decide. So what this guy did, this attorney, he takes me in front of the judge, and he says to the judge, it's just me and the judge and this other attorney. He goes, look, judge, what I'm going to do, this is what the other attorney said, I'm going to take these pictures, I'm going to show them to her doctor, all right, her medical doctor, and say, doctor, based on these pictures, do you think this woman can go back to work, right, because of these positions? And I said, objecting. I said, these pictures are inflammatory. They're going to create a reaction in the doctor, which got nothing to do with medical. That's like when you're in front of a jury, you can object to evidence that's going to be inflammatory. It's going to inflame the jury. That has no real purpose. This wasn't a jury, but I used the same argument. So the judge is like, well, let me look at the so the judge said to the other attorney, this guy named Pete, he said, Pete, can't you just describe the pictures to the doctor? Do you actually have to show the doctor these pictures? And Pete's response was, well, Your Honor, I'm a really good attorney, and I'm really good at explaining things, but I cannot explain what's in these pictures. The doctor has to look at these pictures to understand what's going on. So the judge is like, fine, give me the pictures. The judge takes the pictures, he takes one look at them, he says, objection sustained, you are not showing these pictures in front of the doctor. And whatever happened in the case happened in the case. And the guy's name was, like I said, the guy's name was Pete. I became friends with him over the years. And every time I run into him, I say, Pete, do you remember that story? Remember that time that you pulled out those pictures? And he remembered them. So that was the ultimate surveillance story from my experiences as a workers' comp attorney. And that's the story called Surveillance. Don't forget to read my book, Broccoli Time by Dante, available now on Amazon Books.